Okay, cool. So, what would be your best argument or most convincing evidence for the Christian God being real?
So we have no proof going either way that any God is real or any God is not real. So me believing or me choosing to believe in the Christian God is no better than you choosing to believe in your own reality.
Right, but I think my reality is rooted in evidence, and I don't think that theistic claims are rooted in evidence.
Okay, so then we'd have to define what evidence is. And that evidence that you believe, again, I'm saying you believe, it's going to be your belief again. So really anything, if you take it for what it is, it's you are believing it. And if I choose to believe in a God, there really is no difference.
Well, let me ask you a better question. So, Sudhir, let me. I want to make sure and ask a question that we can engage with. What would be the things that are most convincing to you about the Christian faith? Like, if I asked you, like, if I was a random stranger on the street and I wanted to know why are you a Christian, what would you tell me?
Because I grew up that way, and that's how I was raised. My parents brought me up that way.
Okay, that's a
And
fair answer.
yes,
Do you think that that is the best way to determine what is true?
there really is no way to determine what is absolutely true. Anyways, it comes back all to our beliefs.
Okay. Well, I mean, I appreciate the honest answer because I agree with you. I think there are things ultimately we're not capable of knowing, but I do believe that your particular God is an irrational God that doesn't make a lot of sense, which is why I'm not inclined to believe in your God. And I think there's maybe four reasons. We don't have to do them all at once, but there's kind of four reasons why I don't believe in your God. And I think a lot of them stem from the Bible. I think the Bible is hopelessly contradictory in essentially all of its doctrines between the Old Testament and the New Testament. It gets history and science wrong quite a bit. And then it's also true that like we've got really poor manuscript evidence for quite a bit of it. And then I think the last thing is Jesus didn't fulfill any of the messianic prophecies, which means he's certainly not the Messiah. And if he's not the Messiah, then Christianity is not true. So that's why I think Christianity, we can just kind of throw that right out the window.
All right, can you please present your evidence?
Yeah, for sure. Which one do you want me to start with?
You can start with any.
Okay. Well, my favorite topic ever of all time is talking about the prophecies of Jesus. And so let me go ahead and take you we're going to go to Isaiah chapter 40. And this is a familiar passage for most people. I'm going to put it on the screen. You won't be able to see it yet, but give me a second. I'll share it with you. 1 second. Actually, if you can see my screen, you can see it on the screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, so you might be able to read it. Okay, cool. I'm going to read it out loud anyways. So the prophecy starts out with, Comfort, O comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and cry to her that she has served her term, that her penalty has been paid, that she has received from the Lord's hand double for her sins. A voice cries out in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be lifted up, and every mountain shall be made low. The uneven ground shall become level, and the rough places a plain, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh will see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. So what's happening here in Isaiah 40? Do you know what's happening?
Um, well, I pretty much I don't remember. It's been a while,
Fair
but
enough. So what's happening
yeah.
is this is the beginning of a prophetic unit we call Deutero Isaiah, and he's talking to those that are in Jerusalem about how Yahweh is about to free them from captivity in Babylon because the majority of their people have been held captive in Babylon. And so this starts the restoration prophecy in chapter 40. And he's saying it now is the time to comfort the people that are mourning because the time of mourning is over. Your penalty has now been paid. Your terms of service is run out. So he's saying that, look, we're going to make a highway for our God because God is coming back. He's going to return to the people. In fact, he says, get up. He's talking to another human being right here, to the herald. He says, get up to a high mountain, O Zion, herald of good news. Lift up your voice with strength, Jerusalem. O Jerusalem, herald of good news, lift it up, do not fear. Say to the cities of Judah, here is your God. See, the Lord comes with might, and his arm rules for him. His reward is with him, his recompense before him. So this is God doing what was promised throughout all the rest of the second Isaiah, namely releasing the people from captivity in Babylon and returning them to the land, and then coming back to the temple. That's why it says that he's actually going to round them up. That's not the right word I'm looking for. Give me a second. He's going to put them in his bosom. It says. What verse says that? Give me a second to figure out where that one was. There we go, verse 11. Yeah, he will feed his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms. He will carry them in his bosom and gently lead the mother sheep. Okay, so I say all that to say this. Isaiah 40, given the context of Isaiah, is actually pretty clear. It's just about what's going to happen after the Babylonian captivity in the end of the 6th century BCE. The problem is, like, when we go to Mark, Mark has no idea what he's talking about, and neither do the other gospel authors, because they think this is a prophecy about the time of the Messiah. And it says, the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, as it was written in the prophet Isaiah, see, I am sending my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way. The voice of the one crying out in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make his path straight. But this prophecy from Isaiah had nothing to do with the Messiah at all. There's nothing about a Messiah mentioned. And he also gets the prophet wrong. This part right here says, I'm sending my messenger ahead of you to prepare your way. That's from Malachi chapter 3. This is not from Isaiah. This part is from Isaiah. So, like, the gospel authors, not only can they not quote the text appropriately, but they don't know what the text are talking about.
All right, so first of all, I'd like to say that these authors do not like represent God entirely. They have their own understanding of how things work, and they decide to, write down everything best they can. It's the main idea of the Bible that we should be taking away, not these like 1-2 paragraphs where these guys are people who wrote down something that we can't that's human error that we can't say we wouldn't make in that same case either.
Sure. So that's actually a really good point. Okay. So if we find a bunch of problems with the Bible, we could chalk it up to human error. But let me ask you a question. What percentage of the Bible needs to be, like, how much human error should I find in the Bible before I'm warranted just to say, well, it's all written by humans and shouldn't trust any of it? Like, should 99% of it be true? 90% of it be true? What's the percentage?
So, I think when I came here, like I was telling you, there really is no way to prove anything, right? So, if we're trying to prove something here, you can't really give a percentage of truth. So I want to ask you, what is your truth? What do you believe in?
Well, I mean, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any gods.
Okay.
I think that the universe is eternal. I think it's, time, matter, and space have always existed, and they always will exist. And
Okay.
like, if there is such a thing as an afterlife, I would assume that it's just a naturalistic phenomenon, part of our universe, completely unrelated to a god. But I also don't believe in an afterlife either.
Okay. So you right there, what I heard was many beliefs. You said time, whatever, space, or have been there forever. If Have you seen the fourth dimension, for example? Have you seen anything beyond what you have seen throughout your lifetime? Like, what I'm saying is we as humans in this world we can't see anything past like what we know. We don't know what exists. Who knows what's out there? It might just be a bunch of aliens controlling us. This might be like a kid controlling us like we're a toy. So we don't really know what's out there. So everything you know anyways, it's gonna just be beliefs.
I mean, I agree. I think there are things that we don't know, and I reserve judgment on those things, right? So, like on
Can I add
the,
one thing? One sec.
Mhm.
We could go through like these Bible passages, but I'm not an expert on the Bible, and I've not researched it in depth. So I'm sure if there would be somebody else who might be able to answer you in some way, and you might be able to answer them back, and it could probably go back and forth. But I'm not going to be able to do that.
Okay. Well, listen, Sudhir, I mean, you were delightful to talk to. We're going to try to get someone in here who wants to really debate whether or not their religion is true. But thanks for
Yeah,
coming up, man.
no, I'm serious. Like, could you help me with this idea of like understanding what is like the truth, anyways? Like, how do we come up with that? How
Like,
do we
what
like
is true?
understand that for ourselves?
Well,
Yes.
I think what is true is always tentative, right? Like we observe the world around us and we say, when people make claims that seem to be in accordance with reality, we call that true, you know?
Well, which reality? It's our subjective reality, anyways.
Yep, that's all we have is our subjective reality. We have no access to anything outside of that.
So then, from that, how can we just say something is true objectively?
Well, because we're experiencing the world, right? So like what even when we say that something is objectively true, that we're essentially using it colloquially to mean that like we can root it in what we would consider objective principles. Like you would say it's objectively true that I'm holding a pen, right? Because we can use our powers of investigation to see that I'm holding a pen. But that doesn't mean beyond a shadow of a doubt that that's the case. I could be inside somebody's dream. We could all be someone's dream right now and not actually exist
Yes.
in the real world,
Yes, indeed. So
right?
from there, if you have your own beliefs on reality, anyways, why can't I have mine? Is my question.
Well, you can. I never said that you couldn't. I'm just saying that I don't find them to be very convincing.
Uh,
And you sound like a nice person, but certainly you can understand that we talk to a lot of religious people that are not nice people, and they're willing to use their religion to justify all kinds of horrors, like slavery, like treating women
okay.
like they're lower than men. Like you
Yeah.
wouldn't do those
th-
things, would you?
this is an interesting concept as well. So again, I said you have to distinguish the people from God, but also, what do we consider as right? What do we consider as wrong? I mean, you as an atheist, I want to ask you, where do you get your morals? How can those exist without God?
Well, in my framework, all morals are subjective, right?
Yes, indeed.
So all morals are a product of social engagement, and I know there are some atheists that do believe in objective morals. They have methods for arriving at this. I don't believe in objective morals. I think before someone claims that morals are objective, it's up to them to demonstrate that they exist. Now, I would love for morals to be objective. It would make life way easier, but I see no evidence that morals are objective.
Yes, so then how do you know that they're committing terrible things, whatever they're doing?
Because it's subjective. Like, so when I say that
Okay.
something is good or bad, that
Yeah.
like everyone here knows that I'm talking subjectively, not objectively.
Okay, so then even if the Bible advocates for something you subjectively think is wrong, which is I mean when I watch your stream, which is mainly what you try to do,
Right? Yeah.
how do we yeah.
So
So yeah.
let me put some flesh on those bones. So what happens with these moral arguments? Like Friday night, I did the God is not good debate, which comes up with a lot of moral arguments. And so when people will get in front of me and say, "Well, slavery was okay, grape was okay," different things like that, and then I say, "You're sick." I'm not saying that you're sick because I have an objective moral code that tells me that you're sick. I'm saying you're sick because I have a subjective moral code that believes that. It just happens to be that most people agree with me, which means I get to publicly shame people for holding positions that I think are dangerous.
Okay, so this is more like popular belief then. If And if we go back in history, I could also argue popular belief was mainly God. And even today, we have 30% religious in Christianity. We have more than that in Islam. We have
Mhm.
way more of the world is religious than not, first of all. And at least Christianity and Islam, they're rooted in the same ideas.
Mhm.
I mean, not rooted in the same ideas, rooted in the same, history.
Right. And because morals are subjective, that means I
Yes.
have my own opinions. I'm allowed
Yes.
to have the opinion that I think the Bible was wrong when it endorsed slavery. And if somebody disagrees with me, I'm also allowed to publicly shame them. But that doesn't mean I'm appealing to an objective moral code. There's no objective moral code.
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, I came here seeing you said God is imaginary, but it's again, it's within our heads, and
Hmm.
it's your realities within your heads as well.
Hmm.
So, how can you say it's imaginary when it's subjectively it is indeed real to me, and it exists to me?
Yeah, because it's in your head. So when something is imaginary, that means it's in your imagination, it's in your head. Now, if you can demonstrate God to exist outside of your imagination, then my claim would be wrong.
Yeah, but then everything is imaginary then, because it's within your head.
No, 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 because we can demonstrate that this is also outside of my head. My pen is
How
outside of my
many?
head.
Okay. Uh, you have five senses at least to perceive the outside world,
Hmm. Hmm.
and you can see, you can feel that, you might hear it move, but
Hmm.
that comes back to your head, and you're at least your conscious experience. You can't tell if that's subjective. It's still your subjective experience.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're just going to do the whole brain in the vat argument. But the problem with the brain in the vat argument is you have the same problem, right? So, like,
Yes.
if you're just saying, like, no one can know for sure if we're not just a brain in the
Yes.
vat, that's cool. But the fact of the matter is, you don't operate your life on that assumption, and neither do I. So, it's not really a useful argument. Like,
I
in
mean,
order to get through life, we
yeah.
have to operate as though that is not the case.
Whose life? I don't understand which life you're talking about.
The
Might be for
life
your subjective life.
No, the life that you and I are living. Like, you would not be going through life the same way if you earnestly believed that you were just a brain in a vat, right? So we live our lives with the axiom that we're not brains in vats.
No, that's not what I believe. I I believe I don't know what reality is. So if I believe in God,
Hmm.
and if I choose to make that my reality, that's no different from you making anything else your reality. And I'd like to add that even if it's in my brain and if it's imaginary, it's still real because it's real to me.
Well, it's real to you, but it's not real to me.
Okay, so then it's just this is I feel like this
So
conversation is more just about opinions and
it
popular matter.
it would be subjectively real, which means it would be imaginary, which is my claim.
Okay, and I guess your reality is also subjective real then.
Yeah,
Then I guess
everybody's reality
yeah.
is subjective. We're the only ones that can experience it, but it does happen to be that we can corroborate things, right? So like I can drive by a 7-Eleven and say, "Hey, the lights are on at the 7-Eleven." And then somebody else can drive by the 7-Eleven and say, "Hey, the lights are on at the 7-Eleven." But like
Yeah.
when 40,000 people drive by and say that the lights are on at the 7-Eleven, at that point we have a pretty good case to say, "Hey, shit, I think the lights are on at the 7-Eleven."
Yeah. So I heard this argument before, but those
You
40
couldn't
people
have. I made
telling
it
you.
up on the spot.
No, I've heard something similar. Yeah.
Okay.
So you have those 40,000 people, but them telling you is your perceived, like you perceived that. That means you
Fair enough.
subjectively understood that.
Fair
You don't
enough.
know what they could be.
You're not wrong. It could be that I imagined all 40,000 of those people.
Yes.
Okay. So my experience is subjective, but I'm okay with that. But
Okay.
my
So,
subjective experience doesn't include a God.
okay. And that means your subjective experience and all your beliefs are also imaginary, as well as my God. And
Hmm.
it's all just imaginary anyway. So, why would you come here specifically to say God is imaginary? Why don't you come here to say maybe your phone is imaginary, or we are all imaginary.
Because we have like an axiom, which is that we are not all imaginary, that we all actually do exist, right? So as I stated before, like if you're just going to go with like a really dumb argument on being brains in a vat, like congratulations, you've got the same problem I do. But we don't operate on that axiom. We operate on the axiom that there is an objective world and that we're living in that objective world. So if we are living in an objective world, then we have to determine what is actually in that objective world. And in the world that I think that we are all experiencing, I don't see a reason to believe that there's a God in that world.
Okay, so from what I understood, you said is that you're assuming that we're in an objective world. Well, again,
But
it's
so
up
are
to people
you.
to decide if they want to assume that and what their objective world is.
But that's what I'm saying. All of us are operating on the axiom that we're living in a real world. Like there is a reality in which we all exist, right? So,
Yes, and that reality is our own reality. Our subject, we're operating of the on the objective, on that is our own reality, anyways.
right, yes, but we're all operating on the idea that there is a legitimate world, like it's a tangible, material world that we live in.
I will ask you. I would like to ask you, who is this all? Who is all of us?
Everybody that is in this room right now is operating on the idea that we actually exist.
Yes, and
Because you wouldn't be here if you didn't. If you didn't have
yes,
the axiom
maybe
that
we don't know. We don't know for sure.
we do know for sure. If you didn't have the operating parameter in your brain stating that you're a real person in a real world, you wouldn't be here having this discussion because it wouldn't matter if your God is real. If you weren't real, then you wouldn't care about your God being real.
I don't think it needs to be real. For my imaginary, for example, what for an imagination? It doesn't need to be real for it to be real.
It does.
Uh, no, I
Yep.
mean, you're kind of saying, yeah,
Okay. So my point is pretty easy. Like you and I are both operating on the axiom that we really exist and that we're living in a world that really exists. So like running back to the problem of hard solipsism doesn't further the conversation. All it does is like act as a filibuster. So in the
yes.
real world that you and I both live in, that you and I both operate in, the question is, in that world, is there a God? And I don't see any evidence to believe that the real world includes a God.
Okay, so I know where I went wrong with this. So again, you assumed in your own subjective reality that there is an objective reality, although it may seem like very obvious to you that there is an that you exist. Although it may seem that way, that's the whole point of this subjective reality,
Right? You're just
is that
running
you
right
feel
back to
like you exist.
you're running back to hard solipsism. You don't
Okay, and
believe in
I would like to say,
you don't believe that you're fake. You don't believe that I'm fake. You don't believe that the world is fake. So running away to
I
hard solipsism,
maybe not,
all you're
maybe
doing is
not.
running away from
It's
the
a
actual
subjective experience.
conversation.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just got a little heated.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just saying that the problem of hard solipsism, the only reason why that ever comes up is when people want to run away from the actual conversation. The reality is,
Okay.
both you and I are operating on the axiom that we exist and that we're in a world that exists.
Okay, so again, I disagree with that. There's no axiom except that you're in your subjective reality. I mean, that's the only axiom that I think
Okay.
we know that. Okay,
Okay.
and
Then
from
you've
there, I'd
defeated your
like to
God
say
then.
how I
Because
come to the conclusion of God.
if you're a brain in a vat, so is your God.
Yes. Okay, so I'd say we need to go to hard solipsism because when we go there, you understand if we're all anyways not experiencing the objective reality, we can make our own objective reality what we want. And if I choose to make that God,
Nope.
it doesn't mean it's not imaginary.
If you're a
It might be
brain
imaginary to me, but so is your reality.
if you're a brain in the vat, then it's no longer objective, it's subjective.
It's my subjective reality, and so is yours.
Yep. But do you think we're brains in a vat?
I don't know what the reality is. Who knows? Again,
Somehow
it's whatever
somehow
I perceive through my senses
somehow I'm willing to
since I was
bet
born.
money that you don't think that we're brains in a vat. Because you wouldn't be up here arguing for the existence of your God if you were agnostic on the idea that you could be a brain in a vat.
No, no, no. We don't need a purpose to do anything. Things can just happen because we choose to.
Right, but you
There
care.
doesn't have to
So you care
care. I
about what
don't
you care about what I
care.
think, you care about what others think, you care
No, no, no.
about your
Not
idea of
necessarily.
God. And if you were agnostic
So,
on whether or not you're a brain in a vat, you wouldn't actually care about these concepts. So you're not really agnostic on this point. You're just using it as like a rhetorical device to get out of like talking about the objective world that you and I both accept as an axiomatic claim.
wait. I'd like to ask you, what would a world for me look like then? What would I be doing? Like walking around? I mean, sorry, walking around the street just like punching random people? Is that what you expect? I mean, in this reality, I can still choose to do anything. It doesn't have to be
If you're a brain in
emotional.
a vat, you
You
mean?
can't decide that it's emotional. Yes, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Wait,
if
can you?
you're
I mean, I
if
feel
you're
like you're also interrupting me a bit.
no, I
I
am.
mean,
I apologize.
okay.
So if you're actually a brain in a vat, I don't think it's consistent to think that you would be up here trying to defend the notion of a god. Because if you're a brain in a vat, you would know that any notion of a god is irrelevant because it's still in your head because you're a brain in a vat, which means it doesn't matter if I believe in your god, and it doesn't matter if you believe in your god because you're just a brain in a vat.
Matters to who?
You.
That's the right question. Matters to who? Mattering is subjective.
That's what I'm saying. If you legitimately thought that you were a brain in a vat, you would not care if your God
I didn't say I'm a
existed
brain in a
or
vat.
if I
I said I don't know
believed in
what
your
the
God.
objective. I mean, I never said I'm not coming to any conclusion. I'm saying I don't know what the reality is. I'm in my subjective reality. Anything I believe is anyways going to be subjective. So I choose to believe in God, and I choose to believe it. Maybe it empowers me. Maybe it makes me feel better about how things work. I don't know, but I just choose to believe it, and it applies to you as well. You're in your own subjective reality. You don't know objective reality. You choose to believe your own whatever you understand have
No,
understood from birth, whatever
it's not a
you learned from your
choice.
classes, science.
No one
Yeah.
no one chooses to believe. You're either convinced by the evidence or you're not. You're obviously convinced. I'm not.
Oh, and I wouldn't say that. If we look at how people have like acted throughout history, they've been convinced with their beliefs, but they've come to very wrong conclusions. If you're gonna
But it's
rely on being convinced with your beliefs, I don't think that's a good way to
but it's not a
determine an
choice, is what
absolute
I
truth.
said. Like believing in something is not a choice. You don't choose to believe in something. Like you didn't choose to believe that the sun is going to come up tomorrow. Like you're just convinced that it's going to happen.
Um, I mean, if you want to think it's that way, again, that's your subjective
No, it's just the truth of the
understanding.
matter. Can you force
No, I
yourself
mean
to believe
because you're
that
trying to understand what
what
you're gonna
what time
do.
is it where
If
you're
you're
at
go,
right now?
it's 6 p.m.
Okay, so the sun is up, right?
Yeah, barely.
Can you choose to believe that the sun's not up?
Uh, okay, so yeah, that's a so basically you gave me like a very obvious thing,
The
and
answer is
obviously
no,
from
you
my
can't.
perceived, no, no, yeah, no, exactly, but I'm gonna come to it. So I'm still seeing it from my eyes. I'm still like I can. It's whatever's happening in my head. I can still see it. I'm seeing it from here. It's my subjective experience. I don't know what the absolute reality is.
Cool.
But from what I
So you
understand,
don't get to
from
choose
what
what you believe. You either believe it or you don't.
okay, so then we've come to beliefs. Why have we
Sure.
come to beliefs?
Because we're convinced by claims or unconvinced by claims. And I'm not convinced that the God claim has any merit. I didn't
Okay,
choose to
so
not believe in God. I used to believe in God most of my life.
okay, and if you think about it, anybody can be convinced based off any evidence. So if you
I
have
agree.
this like yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
So really, it's again, it's just your opinion. It's not
I
if
never,
it's going to just be,
I never said it wasn't my opinion.
and people can really force themselves to believe in stuff too as well, and like just like
No,
make themselves be
no, you can't.
convinced. Yes,
You can't
if
force
you do
yourself to be
stuff,
convinced of something.
I think you can. If you
Can
do
you
things
force
many
yourself
times
to
and you do it
believe?
repeatedly.
Can you force yourself to believe that that men are attractive?
Wait, this is going into some other territory.
No, it's definitely
Let's
not.
let's stay away from that.
Can you force yourself to believe that men are attractive?
Can I force myself?
Because if it were possible, shit, I'd do it right now. That'd make dating way easier. I'm surrounded by dudes all day long.
Oh, yeah. So I'd like to add that if you want to look at it biologically, um, let's not. I'm not talking. Okay, if you want to look at it biologically, we don't necessarily have any likes since we were born except to survive, whatever, reproduce. Eat to stay alive, and all of that. We need to do that in order to survive
Call
biologically.
me crazy. I didn't hear an answer to my question. Can you force yourself to believe that men are attractive?
Yes, so that's what I'm saying.
Oh, so you think you
Every
can?
other like
Oh, go
every
ahead and
if
do
you
it.
like doing something else, if you like climbing trees, if you like
Just
whatever, if you
tell me I'm pretty.
finding men attractive, those things are learned.
Go ahead and choose to believe that I'm attractive right now. Tell me I'm pretty.
Okay, come on, man. What is this?
I'm being serious. You said you can choose to do it. Now I want you to choose
This
to do
is
it.
you're not like stumping me or anything. This is getting weird now.
It's not weird at all. I won't even make you pay for dinner.
Bro, come on.
I
I
think
mean,
you see the logical corner that you've painted
no, I don't
yourself
see your thing.
into.
I don't see it.
You've
In
painted
your
yourself
subjective
into a
reality.
logical corner where you think people can just
Bro.
choose to believe things. That's not the way that it works. You don't choose what you believe.
I never said that. I never
You
said that.
just are
Okay,
convinced of
let's take it a step
something
back.
or you're
Let's take
not.
it a step back. Right? Let's take it a step back. You can either choose to believe what you see, or it's learned throughout your lifetime. So if for example you want to talk about this stuff, right? If you were born and your friends and many of them were liked men, for example, right? And then you got around them a lot, then you would probably learn that yourself. If your friends have
Oh
like
no, I don't think
you
so.
know it's
I
learned to
think
some degree.
I think
It's
it
learned to some
no, I
degree,
think attraction is
and it's biological
biological.
to some degree. Yeah, it's biological and it's learned to some degree.
I don't think it's learned. I think it's
So
biological.
basically, what I'm saying is that your subjective stuff, your subjective emotions, you wanting to do
Well,
something,
we'll
you
just do a survey right
feeling some.
now. Everyone in the comments who's attracted to the same sex, put a one in the comments if you chose to be attracted to the same sex, or if you just were.
Okay, man, that's not what I'm saying. Can I please you cut me off? Can I please complete it? Yes.
A lot of ones. I don't know if I stated my question very clearly, but yeah, no one's choosing to be attracted to somebody. They just are.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm not saying that.
Okay. So
Okay. It might be biological,
I'm
and
sure. Well,
other things
listen.
in our other things. Okay, I'm talking about other things now.
I,
Other things in our life.
I'm sure. Listen, I at this point I'm not really sure what our conversation is about anymore. Like I think we've lost like the
All
forest through
right.
the
Can I
trees.
can I just summarize it quickly?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say. All right. So I mean, at least what we learn, our subjective experience is developed over time, and it's also just there biologically. Like, yeah, fine, biologically, maybe you just like men or something, or you're learning math over time, you're learning science over time. These things are learned over time, but they're learned but you're learning them through your brain, or you're learning them through your subjective experience. What that means is that it's your belief. If it's your subjective experience, it's not going to be objective. Everything you learn, it's not going to be subjective. I mean, it's not going to be objective.
I never said it
So if
was.
you want to say, yeah, I mean that. Okay, I'm
Beliefs
not
are
evaluating. So
inherently subjective.
yes, what do you say?
All I said is you can't choose what you believe. You either believe something or you're not.
Yeah, okay, okay. I
It
never
doesn't
said that either.
matter. Doesn't matter what
I
the
never
belief
said that either.
is.
The
Okay.
beliefs might be sure, they might be biological, they might be learned. You
All
might
right.
choose it. It might be any of that. But
Well,
it happens over time, and it happens in your subjective reality.
right.
It's not gonna be in the objective reality.
I'm sure. Okay. Well, listen, Sudhir, I got to move on to the next guest, but I appreciate you coming up. Okay.
Or
All right. Have a good one.
yeah, you.
Well, he's nice enough. He sounded young.